funds. My only ask for you tonight is to sit back, relax, and enjoy all that we have to offer you. Prior to commencing this town hall, I will introduce our speakers. First, we have Dr. Helene Gayle. Helene D. Gayle, MD, MPH, began serving as the 11th president of Spelman College on July 1st, 2022. Dr. Gayle previously served as president and CEO of the Chicago Community Trust, one of the nation's oldest and largest community foundations, from October 2017 to June 2022. Under her leadership, the trust adopted a new strategic focus on closing the racial and ethnic wealth gap in the Chicago region. For almost a decade, Dr. Gayle was president and CEO of CARE, a leading international humanitarian organization. A pediatrician and public health physician with expertise in economic development, humanitarian, and health issues, she spent 20 years with the Centers for Disease Control, working primarily on HIV/AIDS prevention. She led the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation programs on HIV/AIDS prevention and other global health issues. Dr. Gayle currently serves on public company and nonprofit boards, including the Coca-Cola Company, Organon, Palo Alto Networks, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Brookings Institution, Center for Strategic and International Studies, New America and the One Campaign. She is a member of American Academy of Arts and Sciences, National Academy of Medicine, Council on Foreign Relations, American Public Health Association, National Medical Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. She was appointed by President Biden to serve on the President's Advisory Council on African Diaspora Engagement in the United States and also serves on the CDC Advisory Committee to the Director. Dr. Gayle is from Buffalo, New York. She earned a BA in psychology at Barnard College, an MD at the University of Pennsylvania, and an MPH at Johns Hopkins University. She is a tenured full professor in the Department of Environmental and Health Sciences at Spelman College and has received 18 honorary degrees. Dr. Gayle is married to Stephen Keith, the first gentleman of Spelman College, who is also a physician and a proud Spelman dad. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Dr. Helene Gayle a round of applause. Moreover, this conversation will be moderated by Breer Banks, a senior psychology major, management and organization minor from Minneapolis, Minnesota, who currently serves as the president of the 82nd administration of the Spelman Student Government Association, and Simone Moles, a junior political science major, Spanish minor from Bridgeport, Connecticut, who currently serves as the vice president of the 82nd administration of the Spelman Student Government Association. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our lovely moderators a round of applause as they grace the stage.
Hello, Dr. Gayle. Thank you for being here today. So we'll get started right away with the first town hall question. Dr. Gayle, you spent much of your childhood in Rochester and Buffalo, New York. During this time, you graduated with honors from Woodlawn Junior High School and then from Bennett High School. Talk to us a little bit about your adolescence and if you were always driven to succeed or if you had a huge shift in your life that contributed to that.
Well, first, before I start, Coriana, thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and thanks for all you do. And this is so exciting for me. It's just wonderful to look out there and see all of you and have this opportunity. As you know, I try to have office hours. I try to have a chance to talk to people, but there's just not enough hours in the day to be able to engage with all of you. So we thought this town hall would be a way of doing that. So thank you all for coming, and really just so much appreciate your engagement and all that SGA does. Thank you so much. It's just wonderful. So I'm trying to avoid talking about my childhood, but anyway. So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I was very fortunate, I think, to be and I know you may ask more questions about family, but to be in a family who really deeply believed that education was critically important, and that using your education to be able to give back to the community was part of that. And so I'm the middle of 5 children, all who went on to do great things and achieve a lot. But this notion of being able to give back was really something that was very deeply part of who we were. When you grow up in a family of 5 kids, we all competed with each other. So I grew up with this really competitive streak. I wanted to succeed. It was also very important for us as a black family of that era that we recognized that being able to succeed and achieve was something that was going to not only help us, but was going to hopefully make a difference for our community. So excellence and academic achievement was something that was very important to me. I also grew up in a neighborhood in a setting where we saw people who had achieved a lot and expected a lot out of us. And I still have a group of friends who I grew up with in Buffalo who all have that same, we had that same nurturing environment where all of our parents were each other's, were parents to all of us and really expected a lot of us. And so that's what kind of gave me a lot of my start.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gayle. You talked a bit about some of the competitive spirits, the family dynamic that you had within your family as the middle of 5, and we kind of want to talk about some of the character building that you were able to share within that dynamic. So you grew up with a father who was a small business owner and a mother who was also a social worker. What were your family dynamics like, which you tapped into a little bit, and how do you believe that the grit that your father possessed as an entrepreneur and the emotional intelligence that your mother possessed as someone who helped displaced children contributed to your success as a physician, CEO, and president?
Yeah, so my mother was a social worker, and as you said, obviously that's a profession of compassion, and she helped us to think about being empathetic and compassionate. I will say that my father was actually the nurturer. My mother was kind of this, much more hard driving. She was incredibly dynamic, but she was the taskmaster. My father was kind of the soft nurturer. Often that's the case. That said, my first job, in fact, my only job until I went to college, was working in my father's store. And all of us, that was our first job. That's what we did. And we learned so much by being, it was a small business in the heart of the black community. The people who came in as barbers, it was barber and beauty supply company. So we had barbers, beauticians, people coming in for retail, hair products. And you learn to deal with a whole range of characters and individuals. And so I think from a very early age, we learned to relate to a range of people. My father was also very, very, although he's a businessman, he saw his business almost as a community service. And so we also saw people who didn't have a whole lot, but he always was willing to extend a helping hand. And so it gave us a very well-rounded background. We also learned the value of a dollar. We were at the cash register. We learned, that was back before there were calculators and computers. We had to learn how to actually do change without all those sort of things. But we used to count the money that we got from the cash register that went to the bank. We learned about honesty and integrity. We were responsible for making sure that the money that we earned got to the bank. So there are a lot of things that we learned as a result of having that experience.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle, for that response. And my father is also an entrepreneur, so I am able to relate on that edge as well, and taking a few of those lessons that you took as well when it comes to learning those tangible skills, right, that you talked about. So definitely something that goes a long way. So our next question is focusing on your college career at after you graduated high school. And so after briefly attending Baldwin Wallace University, you transitioned to and graduated from Barnard with a BS in psychology. Can you talk to us about your pivot from Baldwin Wallace to Barnard, which may be insightful for some of the transfer students in the audience? Additionally, what was college life like for you?
So, I graduated from high school a year early, but I didn't plan to do that. I just realized, I looked up and realized I had enough credits and I was eager to get away and be on my own. And I didn't have a plan. So I went to Baldwin Wallace, which is where one of my sisters went to college. They had a fairly easy application. I did it probably 2 months before college started. But I got there and I realized that although it was it was a fine college, that it didn't provide for me the academic rigor that I was looking for, and it didn't provide for me the kind of student body that I thought would challenge me and open my eyes to new things. And I had, for a variety of reasons, including at that time I had a boyfriend who went to college in New York City. Beyond that, I also wanted to go to New York City because I thought it would open up my horizons. And, I wanted to go to whatever was the best college I could go to in New York City. At that time, Columbia University, which is an Ivy League school, you couldn't go to Columbia College as a woman. You could only go to Barnard. So I went to Barnard, and I am so happy that I did, because I would not have necessarily thought about going to a women's college on my own. And I found there being at a college, not dissimilar from Spelman, being at a college where, as a woman, they pour into you, think about how do you develop your sense of being a leader as a woman. And so it was a really wonderful experience. And luckily, they were very good about incorporating me as a transfer student into it. And, my best friends to this day are some of my college classmates from Barnard. So, it can be done, you can incorporate, and, it helps when you have a welcoming community that really sees that sisterhood, that bond, and make sure that you feel, comfortable.
No, I'm really happy that you tapped into the sisterhood that you experienced at Barnard, because it's definitely something that Bria and I have here, and something that you can't really explain until after it's over, or just being in the thick of it. I know in the application process, it's something that you can't see with the admissions booklets. It's something that you can't see until you get inside the gates and really feel that experience. And so it's good to hear that you were able to have that before coming to Spelman with us. And so we're excited.
And I tell young women today who now can apply to Columbia and get in, that if you have the choice, go to Barnard. You could always take classes at Columbia. It's the same situation as we have here with the AUC. You can take classes. You can be at Barnard, take classes at Columbia. You have Columbia co-educational right across the street. But I still think that the Barnard experience is particularly important. The women's.
That sisterhood.
Yeah, the sisterhood.
And so we want to talk a little bit about your experience in medicine and your passion for medicine. And so while in college, you pursued a BS in psychology. Can you also share with us a little bit about your inspiration for your passion with this field, and what made you initially pursue medicine, but then pivot to corporate work and philanthropy?
So I was not thinking I would go to medical school, and I thought I would do a PhD in psychology, in clinical psychology. I was really drawn to the behavioral sciences. I felt that, being able to think about how people and societies evolve, and, think about how understanding oneself and behavior really makes a difference for our society. So I was really, really intrigued with psychology. But as I was at Barnard, that has a very, very heavy focus on pre-med and the sciences, I thought to myself that I could probably do a PhD in psychology, which took 6 years, if you're lucky, or I could do the 4 years in medicine and then do psychiatry as my specialty. And that's what I thought I was going to do, psychiatry. Obviously, I didn't. I did pediatrics. And I just got kind of intrigued with the idea that health and medicine is so central to one's life that it would be a good tool, regardless of how I used it, that having that medical background would be something that would actually, provide me a lot of options. And so that's what I did, and that's what I pursued. Was there a second part to that question?
Yes, and so from that pursuit into medicine, what actually influenced your pivot into corporate work and philanthropy?
Well, I love it. My pivot was to public health and agnostic of whether it was, philanthropy or whatever. So, I've always been interested in population and societal change and how do you move populations. And so, I thought about my medical career, and I, did especially in pediatrics. But, when you practice clinical medicine, you make a difference for one person at a time. But when you do public health, your patient is a population, it's a community, it's a nation, it's a world. And that's where I really got my inspiration, is by feeling like I could have an impact beyond just an individual, which is wonderful. When you're sick, you want a doctor, you want to be better. Mm-hmm. But I also thought that, communities, when they're sick, if you will, need somebody who thinks about how do you make communities well and communities thrive. So for me, public health was where I felt I could have the greatest overall impact.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle, so far for these responses. So we're transitioning over to higher education, right? And in your conversation about Barnard, right, you were really able to understand what it was like to attend, an all-women's institution. And so in this discussion, in 2022, you were ranked in Forbes 50 over 50 in the category Impact. Given your expertise in health...
Am I over 50?
No. Look, hey.
I'll take it.
Given your expertise in health, leadership, and philanthropy, what made you pivot to higher education? And you mentioned Barnard. And how do you envision education changing in respect to our social and political climate?
So, given that I'm over 50, and have had a really wonderful career where I feel like I've had the chance to have impact in a variety of different ways, when I was called to consider Spelman, at a time when I was in a job that I really loved and didn't think that I was ever going to do another full-time job, I just thought that the next most impactful thing that I could do would be to influence the next generation. And so, I kind of shifted my thinking about when was the end of my career or what would be the last chapter, and really felt that being able to have an influence on the next generation of change makers was where I thought I could have the greatest impact. And so I said, might as well give it a try. And you said, where higher education today?
Yes, yeah. So what made you pivot to higher education,
Right.
which you answered, and how do you envision education changing in respect to our social and political climate?
So I think it's evolving so rapidly. Everybody talks about AI as an example. Yeah. So clearly, how we educate is going to continue to change. I think that the fact that our world is getting more complicated and we need to prepare people to not have necessarily think about their lives as one profession, and that whatever I learned in college is going to still be relevant for me tomorrow, or that the career I start after college or graduate school is going to be the career I end up in. I think that's not the world that you all are inheriting. So, I think higher education has to take into consideration the new tools, and technologies like AI and all the advances that will come from that. I think it also has to take into consideration that our society in general is changing so rapidly, so you have to think about being a lifelong learner and agile. And I also think, more and more the things that we will be working on are not just something that is one area or one sector, but being able to think across multiple sectors is going to be more and more important as we think about how do we actually prepare for the challenges of today and for tomorrow. And clearly we're also more global than ever and more interconnected. So also thinking about how do we prepare people to be global citizens in a way that I think we might not have had to do 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think that type of mindset about thinking about future generations and also thinking on the socio-political level is something that we've been trained to do here at Spelman, and something that people like you with so much impact really allow our nation to move forward with. And so with all that impact, Dr. Gayle, I know it did not come easy. It takes grit, it takes prayer, it takes patience, it takes hard work. Who were some of the people in your life who have allowed you to develop that strong relationship with you as far as mentorship? And additionally, what advice would you give to those in the audience who are avidly seeking a mentor? You mentioned your parents in the beginning, and so who were some of the other mentors that have really influenced you?
First of all, I grew up in a time when I'm not sure we thought as specifically about mentors. And I think people didn't necessarily think as intentionally as I think we do today. So I think about people who were probably more role models than they were mentors. As an example, one of the people who influenced me a lot was my boss when I was at the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. David Satcher, who went on to be the Surgeon General of the United States. It was the first time I'd ever worked for a black boss. Wonderful human being. He lives here in Atlanta. His daughter is a Spelman grad. He taught me so many life lessons, and I think not only lessons about my profession, but how do you think about your life in a well-rounded way? So that's just one example, but I think there are people like that who I've had the opportunity to encounter in my life who open doors for me, and I think that's as important as the mentoring, give you opportunities that might not have been there otherwise, and also help you think about yourself in a holistic way.
Yeah, and so what advice would you give some of us who are actively seeking mentorship?
I think, first of all, we have a lot of formal mentorship programs, and I think it's important to take advantage of those programs because, those are people who want to mentor, know how to mentor, and are going to. But I also think the organic mentorships and mentors are also important. People who see something in you and want to make sure that they continue to nourish that. And that's where I think mentorship can be the most fulfilling and rewarding. And people who also are open to learning from you. I learn as much from the people that I try to mentor as maybe they do for me. And so I think to me mentorship should be a two-way street where people are open to learning from you as well as you learning from them.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle, for that answer. One thing that I wanted to ask you, if I may, is I know that you mentioned the plethora of resources that we have available here at Spelman College, right? When it comes to mentorship, I'm sure we're all familiar with Braven, we have an amazing Wells program, On the Hill program. And so with these programs and opportunities, what would be your advice for maintaining relationships? I know that's something that I experience when it comes to Spelman College, being able to be a resource for connecting you with amazing, amazing mentors, but how would you advise us to maintain those relationships as time continues?
I think, first of all, starting those relationships in a way that allows deep connection. Because I think once you develop deep connection, it's easier to kind of keep those going. And I think too often people do a check the box. I'm supposed to have a mentor, so I'm going to check that box. But don't really spend the time to engage, get to know each other. And again, I think the value of those is when you do develop that real connection where it's more than just to check the box, but it's somebody is investing in you. So, I think that's what I would say.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle. So, as a highly accomplished world leader who continues to break barriers and defeat the odds, we can presume that you endured a lot of adversity in your lifetime. What was the greatest difficulty that you faced, and how were you able to overcome it?
Adversity. I guess I don't know that there is a big, here was this experience that almost knocked me down and I had to get back up. I think I've experienced day by day adversities that you learn to develop resilience so that you can keep moving forward. And I think, as a Black woman in environments where I've often been the only one, where my authority was often challenged, I think you just learn how to stay resilient, figure out coping mechanisms to keep yourself whole and healthy, and also figure out how do you use situations of adversity as learning situations, not just for you, but for the people around you. So how do you make sure that you take situations of adversity and use them as teachable moments? And I think when I've been able to take adversity and make them teachable moments, it helps me, but it also helps those who might have wanted to see me not succeed.
No, I think that's definitely something that we all can take from and really pull from that experience, and something that was shared in a recent convocation with Stacey Abrams about learning the losses. And when we face adversity, those day-to-day challenges, we have to find the teachable moments. We have to learn those lessons. But you also spoke to something that I think is extremely important, especially post-pandemic, thinking about self-care and wholeness. And so following the pandemic, we saw a huge prioritization of mental health and of maintaining healthy boundaries. How do you balance work and your personal life and establish healthy boundaries between the two? And then what advice would you have for us college students and how we are so driven to succeed, but often find ourselves drained, overworked, and overwhelmed?
Balance is something that I think you keep working on, and I don't know that anybody says, gee, I got that balance thing done. I think it's something you have to constantly be mindful of and realize that changes at different phases in your life. And if you want to have a life where you have a whole life and holistic, which means a personal life as well as a professional life, a spiritual life, a emotionally whole life, then I think you have to figure out, what are the trade-offs at any given point and make sure that you're balancing for that and prioritizing. I think a huge part of balance is prioritizing. At some points in time, I have to be laser focused on career and the job and the task ahead of me. But then realize that you can do that but so long, where you also then have to make sure you're nurturing other parts of your life. So I just think it's being clear about what are you prioritizing at any given point in time, and then making those trade-offs in an intentional way.
Yeah, so I like your point on prioritization, and one of the topics of discussion actually in my Theory of Psychometric Instruments course is this prioritization, and specifically what does self-care look like to you, right? And so I have a question in terms of what you like to do for fun. So now that we've gone through your childhood and professional endeavors, I'm curious to know what you like to do for fun and what brings you the most joy.
Well, what brings me the most joy is being surrounded by people that I love. So, for me, for fun, I like to cook. I like to throw parties. I like to dance. So things that involve people. I also try to be consistent about my exercise. I get up most mornings and do some exercise. I love to read. I love to watch movies. Yeah, it's exciting.
It is.
And so what, some of the things that you included for fun, in addition to that, we know that you have an annual book club that will be starting soon with the help of our Secretary of Academic Affairs, Sage Allen, which we are so excited about. So would you be willing to share your favorite book and any significance that it has to you?
Well, it's hard to boil it down to one favorite book.
Yeah.
But I think one of the books that we talked about exploring is called The Gift of Imperfection. And, I chose that because I think we all struggle with trying to be perfect, trying to do everything exactly right. And this book talks about how you should value your imperfections as a way of continuing to learn, and also appreciate that perfection is not the goal. And so, that's one that I hope that we'll be talking about. I'm just about finished with a book that we're reading for the book club that I'm in. It's about 755 pages, called The Covenant of Water. Fascinating book. Do you know about that? Yeah, right. So anyway.
That's amazing. So I know that we were talking about what we enjoy doing for self-care purposes, right? And so to keep with the positive touch that we have going on, prior to opening it up for a Q&A, do you have any last-minute advice for those in the crowd? If not advice, maybe you can share your favorite quote or scripture or a positive affirmation that gets you through your toughest moments. I'll also add potentially a motto that you have. I always like to ask leaders what their favorite motto is that they live by. So any one of those options is yours to choose from.
My favorite model is done is better than perfect, because I think sometimes we try so hard to get everything exactly right, and we then just don't get the job done. I try to tell that to my senior team. Sometimes it just means getting it done. We talk about the, 80-60 rule. Like, you just need to get 80% there. Everything doesn't have to be equally perfect. And I think, again, it's the same message of the book that I was talking about. I think sometimes we frustrate ourselves by trying to get everything exactly right, as opposed to getting something done and then figuring out what is the thing that you must be perfect about, and what are the things that, in fact, you can do well enough to get the job done.
Well, thank you so much for your encouragement.
It's the 80-20 rule, but anyway, right.
For your encouragement, for your words of wisdom, and just for sharing with us a little bit more about who you are, where you're coming from, your family, your career, all those things that some of us may or may not have known before that. And so, as you may know, in preparation for the town hall, students were able to submit questions. And while we will not have time to answer all of the questions submitted, we did our best to organize them into themes and focus on the issues most pressing to students.
Beautiful. All right, so we'll get started with the first question. And these questions are for you or your senior team leaders as we progress throughout the questions. So about 1 month ago, almost to the day, we learned of the historic gift from trustee Rhonda Stryker and her husband, Mr. John Brown. Students have many questions about how and when the $100 million gift will be used, and can you provide more details on how and when the gift will impact students?
So Bill Johnson but yeah, it's all right. So $100 million, fabulous, and as everybody knows, it was historic, largest gift Spelman has ever had, largest gift to any historically black college university. So it's it's great, and I hope it will mean that we will get many more. Yeah. So what our trustee wanted most to prioritize was scholarships for students. And so 75 million of that will go to an endowment for scholarships. And I'll talk about endowment in a minute. The other components, she felt very strongly about upgrading our housing and our dormitories, and particularly the dormitories that were un-air conditioned. So we're going to start that project of air conditioning Morehouse, James, and Abbey. And then there's an area that we've talked a lot about that we think Spelman has great scholarship to contribute, and that's in the area of public policy and democracy. And how do we bring together all of the things we do across the many areas that we focus on and think about what are the policy implications and how can Spelman be a voice in policy debates, and how can we use scholarship that allows us to see things from the lens of women of African descent and how that impacts everything from AI to social justice to theater and performing arts, et cetera. And all of those things, have a huge policy dimension because it's the practice of how do you make change in those areas that we, really want to focus on. So that, and then, some resources to be able to provide me and presidents in the future some discretionary funds for high priority issues. One of the things I think that's been most challenging is that, people don't always think about what an endowment means. And an endowment is one of the most valuable things that an institution can have because it gives you money long into the future. But it does mean that it doesn't give immediate funds for things. I mean, other than the building renovations, which we'll be doing immediately, the rest of it we put in a bank for or into investments for a year until we start getting some interest, if you will, from those investments, and then we start spending some of those resources. What you don't want to do with endowed funds is to start chipping away at the principal, because then the intent, which is to be able to have money far into the future, gets taken away. So that's what that gift is for and how it will work. And so within a year, we'll start having money that we can start using, but it will really have an impact far into the future.
No, I think that's helpful clarification, and so thank you for being able to share that how and when for us to understand a little bit more about the endowment. Now on to another topic of housing, which is of particular interest to probably everyone in this room, especially after Friday's announcement. So over the past several years, Spelman College has seen record enrollment. While the growth and support of HBCUs is always wonderful, it seems that our enrollment growth has outpaced our residential capacity. In previous years, housing was guaranteed for first and second year students. Can you help us understand why the college moved away from guaranteeing housing to second year students and how the college is working to address the demand for on-campus housing?
Yeah, so, when you have, so first of all, people have talked a lot about, the record enrollment, the record applications and the record enrollment, and if we didn't have enough housing, why do you accept so many students? And it's a bit complicated, but it's hard to always estimate and refine exactly when you have applicants, who's going to accept and who's not going to. So once we make the acceptances, it's really hard to calibrate, and it's changed so much over time because we have more students who get accepted who want to come definitively. And that's a shift because we used to have, we would admit students and there was a certain percentage that went somewhere else. Now people want to come to Spelman, and so we're still having to calibrate our numbers so that we're, more exact in terms of some of those things. So we're not intentionally over-enrolling. It's just that it's hard to always calibrate those things. We also made the commitment, including, based on these resources, to upgrade those dormitories, which means that's about 200 beds less than we had. So taking all of those sort of things into consideration, we didn't want to guarantee something that we couldn't deliver on. And we felt, absolutely, some students who are coming for the first time, they need to be on campus. So we felt that was a commitment we knew we could make. And so, that was being realistic about it. We wanted to make sure we that if we guaranteed something, we could deliver on the guarantee. We also know that although sophomores, that's still a priority for us, there are also juniors and seniors for a variety of different reasons also want to be on campus. So we wanted to be as equitable as we could to everybody who'd already had a chance to be on campus, live on campus, get their grounding, but also realize that we've got a whole community that we want to think about. We want to have juniors and seniors have opportunities to be on campus. We think that campus life is balanced by having all 4 classes there. We end up in a situation where, and it was noted that we were no longer guaranteeing sophomores, but I think because people had been in a habit of that, it was a change for people, and I'm not sure that we communicated it as effectively as we could have, and so I accept that, and Dr. Holloman can talk about that more if you want, but I think sometimes we are less than perfect in how we make sure that information is as well communicated as possible. So that said, what we've tried to do, we have the dormitories over at the ITC. We are expanding capacity at college-sponsored apartments like the Mix. We're also looking at another place that is a bit closer where we could provide additional housing that would have great transportation, et cetera. So we're trying to find creative solutions. And in the meantime, we are building new dormitories. There will be much greater capacity, but that, of course, takes time and a few years. So we are where we are. It's less than satisfactory, but we're going to continue to make sure that we try to find as many solutions as we can. And I don't know, Darryl, if you want to add anything, but.
I think just real briefly, to fill in something, what we did recognize from the protest was that although we had made the change about first year requirements.
Microphone.
Sorry, just real briefly, because I know the time is late. Although we made the change on the housing website, out of the protest, we recognized that there was an old website that had not been disabled, which still had the old requirement out there. And so understanding that obligation that we have done, Dr. Gayle challenged us to really think creatively about how we could come with a resolve. And the greatest resolve is that we will have, we're in negotiations now and discussions with Westmar to add an additional 268 beds at Westmar, which will be for the sophomores who have applied for housing, right? And so we are going to, tomorrow, because we finished all of the housing selections, and so we, by the end of the week, early next week, we're going to open back up to make it a room selection, open up to the 268 who have done, sophomores who've done housing selections, to be able to be back in the pool so that we can cover the housing. Don't hold me exactly to this number, but with the college-sponsored housing, which will be Westmar, the Mix, and the ITC complex, we will probably have, combined with our on-campus housing, almost 1,800 beds, which is 400 more than what we have. And so currently, and so we'll have a little bit more space to be able to absorb. One last point about Westmar that we feel is really important is we know transportation has been raised as a concern. And so the Westmar has a transportation bus that comes directly from Westmar to the AU Center complex. It's about an 8 to 10 minute ride. And what we are trying to negotiate, what I brought up to them, was since they already go downtown anyway, so Westmar goes down to Georgia State, kind of that area, if that transportation bus could likely swing down there and get the students who are at the Mix or some of the other complexes down there and be able to come to campus, right? And so trying to be really proactive, we recognize that this housing project is probably going to take about 4 years to complete, hopefully in 1 year. And that's just simply because we have to get the housing construction for next year, which is about a $28 million investment from the college. You want to do it well. And then it takes about 18 months for a complete housing project to be finished. And likely in a 3-year, 4-year period, we will be able to have all of those beds on campus.
Yeah, and just to say, I mean, obviously, that 3 to 4 years from now is probably irrelevant to most of you in the audience. You'll be gone. But, I think knowing that we will have this in the future, and in the meantime, continuing to try to be creative about solutions today, it's a delicate balance. But if we don't get started now, then students who come 5 years from now will be in the same situation that you're in. And, we even went back and forth about, well, should we not do the renovations to Morehouse, James, and Abbey? But, that's been years in the making. And at some point, we've got to upgrade our infrastructure so that we will not continue to be in this situation. So there's no wonderful solution, but we're going to kind of keep working on it. And I would also say on the Westmar, because we'll be able to have that many rooms over there, we hope to also be able to create an environment that feels like it truly is an extension of being here on campus, and figure out how do we have the kind of environment that makes you feel like you're in a place that feels like Spelman as much as possible. So we're going to keep working on it.
And I think that that's a very helpful and creative solution. I'm happy that you brought that up, because I know that one of the concerns for moving off campus this year personally was I'm not getting the feel of being
Right.
at Spelman. I'm not getting
Right.
the environment. I don't have the RA. I don't have the access that I had to those facilities. But being able to craft the creative solutions to extend that sisterhood outside the gates is really the type of leadership that we will need for next year and beyond. And so I really appreciate that perspective, Dr. Gayle. It's definitely something for us to think about looking into the next year. And then, of course, something for the administration to keep fleshing out as we continue to press forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I would also just say I think we want to look at ways in which we can continue to get useful feedback about these experiences so that we can make them as positive as possible. And so, yeah, we look forward to continuing to have the dialogue around that.
Thank you for those amazing updates, Dr. Gayle and Dr. Holloman. I definitely believe in the addition of ideation when it comes to making sure that we're facilitating that sisterhood and that community that we're looking for. And I do want to plug the Virtual Advocacy Board, VAB, that is accessible via our Spelman College website page, to be able to submit those any ideas that you guys all might have when it comes to making sure that we have that sisterhood off campus and on campus, right? We all chose Spelman because of that community and that sense of belonging. And so I want to make sure that continues, as well as Simone touched on too. I'm also excited to hear the additions of Westmar housing, because that is a very big feat and a very big addition. And I do appreciate being able to listen to the student concerns and to provide that additional housing as well. I know for my internship site placement, I was placed 1 minute away from Westmar, so I'm very familiar with the area. And so definitely recognize the additional 200 and I believe like 260 rooms is a really big deal. So being able to not only hear us, but then to apply that action to our concerns, right? Yeah. So I urge everyone to continue to submit that feedback and those ideas for cultivating that sense of community via our Virtual Advocacy Board as well. Our final question in regard to the housing selection process was, in speaking with our peers, it seemed the lack of housing, particularly for second-year students, came as a surprise, which we already touched on. Moving forward, though, what steps is the college taking to improve communication and processes for the housing selection process? I know if...
You can answer, but I just say, I think we're thinking about that. You know, we've talked about maybe we could have some kind of an advisory committee or, you know, something of that sort that allows us in real time and, you know, consistently to get the kind of input that would be helpful, you know, and it's also a way to be able to continually give you the most updated information about where we are with housing, where we are with some of the construction projects, and then based on that, be able to help us to think as creatively as possible so that we don't end up always having to be reactive to a situation, but we're being more proactive about it. And so that's, you know, I think we'll be thinking about strategies like that. And again, with your advocacy board, any ideas that people have about ways in which we can do that, that would be great too.
That'd be great. Awesome. And I do, again, once again, urge my Spelman sisters and my Spelman siblings to submit that feedback. We really do review it every SGA meeting. That is the first thing that we begin with the virtual advocacy board submissions, and that goes directly to senior team leadership as well. So please know that your voice is also being heard.
And one other thing that, you know, we've talked about, and this may accelerate it, is to thinking about more places on campus for people who are commuting, because, you know, you don't it may be hard to go back and forth between classes, and so we want to think about, are there ways of also building in spots where people in between who are living off campus can convene, can, you know, do their work in between classes, et cetera. So anyway.
No, definitely helpful ideation, as Bria stated before. Now we're going to make a heavy pivot over into some non-STEM disciplines, but again, I would echo the sentiments for the need to continue to express your concern so that we can continue to work towards creative solutions. One of Spelman's pride points is that we are the #1 producer of Black women who earn PhDs in STEM. How is the college strategically promoting non-STEM disciplines such as the social sciences and humanities?
You know,
Yes, so let me share how we'll be working with the structure. We're going to finish up here, and then after, we have members of the senior team who will be available in addition to Dr. Gayle right outside for a light refreshment, where you'll be able to ask further questions there. And this was all stated in the invite about submitting questions to the QR code.
Yes, and so the QR code that we submitted questions to, will that be answered outside of this meeting as well, or are we just going to get to the 2 questions that were answered?
So we're going to start with these, and then outside we can finish with the remainder of the questions, if that's okay.
outside, or we're happy, you know, after the session is over, you know, come down and happy to.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry. It might just be me, but I was a little confused on the town hall styling of it. You know, the town would be interactive with, you know, the questions. So,
No, definitely, definitely.
I would love the opportunity to speak to you all after.
Yeah.
As well as I'm sure my Spelman siblings would also, right? Like the opportunity to speak about housing more.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Olivia, I really appreciate you raising your concern, because that was,
No.
that's helpful. No.
Okay, so
Is that okay with you, Olivia? Okay, because
we will say, so we will stay behind, and we will also, you know, if there is a desire, we're happy to have some other time to just go into depth about housing, because we know it's a big, you know, it's a big concern. So this, and we can keep, you know, we can keep exploring what's the best format for town halls as well. But, you know, I value the way that you all have constructed this, and we'll keep, you know, it's always constant improvement. So, yeah. Okay.
thank you, Olivia, for that. We're going to make sure that we can address those concerns immediately after this last question. Is that good? Yes. Okay, as long as you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got our final question, and then we'll take some additional questions outside when we take our light refreshments. So, in regard to the future of Spelman College, this is the final question. Dr. Gayle, what is your vision for the future of Spelman College?
The future of Spelman College. So, as I always say, it's wonderful to be in a position where you have a really excellent institution that all you can do is to make it even more excellent. And, I think that Spelman College is so well positioned to even be more stellar than it is. And whether you rank that by the fact that we continue to be consecutively 17 years in a row, number one HBCU. We've moved up the ranking from being the 51st ranked liberal arts college in the nation to the 39th. I think we could be within the top 25 liberal arts colleges, maybe top 15, whatever. But I think more than all of the ratings is, we continue to be the largest producer of black women, not only just that go on to STEM careers, you mentioned that, but who contribute leadership to our nation and to our world. And I think that's what we are, that's who we are, and I think we can continue to do that job with even greater excellence. I also feel very strongly about two things that are all about money, but it is to have the kind of infrastructure that is equal to the excellence in our academic and educational achievement, and that we take financial considerations off the table so that any young woman who can come to Spelman and wants to come to Spelman isn't impeded because she cannot afford it. So we have to make college more affordable. We also have to make sure that we have the ability to provide the financial support so that nobody has to leave here with huge debt burden or not be able to come because they couldn't afford it. So those two things, as well as overall continuing to make sure that what we do is to produce the best and the brightest who go on to make an impact on our world.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle, so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. If we could give her all a round of applause. So I know that you will provide some closing remarks for your end, and then please let us know how you would like us to take questions, whether inside or outside at the refreshment area.
I don't really have specific closing remarks other than, first of all, to thank all who were involved in this. There's many people on my team who were involved, always STS and the great support that they give to make sure that programs like this are successful. I see Nicole Johnson out there who did a huge amount. To SGA, for all you do to provide such incredible leadership, to both of you, to Coriana, to others who always, work with me and my administration to make sure that we're doing as much as possible to connect with students and students' needs. So anyway, I'm just, and to all of you who came out, we may not have answered all your questions perfectly, but I hope this gives some sense of, what I'm trying to do while I'm here, as well as what my team is trying to accomplish. So thank you. I know you've got lots that you could be doing. It's busy. It's a busy time, but thank you for coming out and spending the time with us today. It really means a lot. So thank you so much.
Dr. Gayle, thank you for your time. Thank you for all of your answers that you have provided for us today. And thank you, honestly, for allowing SGA to create this outlet for students to be able to ask you questions, for you guys to be able to provide us answers and additional time as well after this. So thank you, Dr. Gayle, once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Simone, I think we're going to stay here. Stay here. Okay. So we will stay here for any additional questions. Can we get SGA, could you pull up the speaker, please?
So we're going to stay for additional questions, and we have the mic there.
And there's also food outside for anybody who would like to start having just social time. There's also food outside for the reception.
Give me a plate. It's. I was joking, but like not really. But. All this. Oh. I agree. Yeah. Yes, please. If it's on.
Why don't we just, because some people are going out there, why don't we just, those who have additional questions, just let's come up front and have. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Either way, whatever works best.
Thank you, Olivia.
Is it on? No, I think, no, it's on.
Okay, everyone, we'll now begin the question portion. So if we could have everyone's attention. Thank you.
Okay, hi, my name is Lauren Chadwick. I'm a first-year sociology and anthropology major. And I think the second to last question you were going to ask Bria was about how is Spelman College going to invest in disciplines that are not STEM-related, specifically social science disciplines. So, that was my question. Like, how is Spelman College going to do that?
Yeah, great question. And yes, that was one of the questions that we just didn't get to. So, it's complicated because we are a school that is very dependent on resources that we bring in. There tend to be, right now, a lot of STEM resources. So it isn't as if Spelman itself said, we won't prioritize this, that, or the other. A lot of it has to do with the fact that money for STEM and STEM disciplines is increasing all the time. And we have a reputation as a school that does really great in terms of encouraging STEM careers, which, obviously are important careers. That said, it's part of why, I feel very strongly that as we go out and raise resources, we need to think about resources that will allow us to have more flexibility, and that means growing our endowment again, talked about endowments, so that we have flexible resources that we can then prioritize however we want to. We've also thought about creative ways. There are foundations that are very specifically focused on social sciences, and so how do we use more of those? How do we, as we think about more cross-discipline, use resources that are STEM, but that have a social science component to it that allows us to flexibly use STEM resources? It's also, again, why this public policy focus that we're developing is so important, because that can also help to provide a more multidisciplinary, including the humanities, in the work that we do in public policy. So we're trying to be creative, understanding that the funding streams are just more brisk right now for STEM than they are for some of the others. But we're going to continue to be creative about that.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Sally Fortier. I'm a first-year English major and a psychology minor. And you guys were talking about the Westmar apartments and how that would help to aid in solving the housing issue. However, the Westmar apartments isn't livable. They aren't livable. According to recent reviews, here, Martha says from 4 days ago, room not as advertised. Like, it's actually sad how terrible it is. Hallways smell like hot garbage. Maintenance requests take way too long to be fulfilled. Pest problem. They got stray cats, and you get charged if you feed them, which is crazy because they help with the pest problem building management doesn't take care of. Building manager is rude. Ants everywhere. Overall, just completely false advertising. And they do mandatory apartment checks. Another review from a month ago. Don't move here. The trashiest place with roaches, no matter if your place is clean. Staff isn't on the same page with rules, maintenance, or fees. Most unorganized complex I've seen. Big, rude, lazy, miserable security guard at the front desk who is always on a personal call, doesn't need to be at the front with his terrible attitude. I'm sure everyone knows who this guy is. Another one by Jasmine Nelson from a month ago. I lived here last year, worst time of my life. 2 people were shot, someone was killed, another person committed suicide while here. I had to pay Terminex to do my apartment out of my own money because their pest people never did their job. Management is rude, and the white man Mike can go to hell with gasoline underwear. This place is hell. When my lease is up, I'm out. Another thing.
So is there more reviews? Because I think we get the gist.
Yes.
So let me just say, first of all, as everyone knows, the people who write reviews tend to be the people who are the least satisfied. So that's not a random sample. It is a specific commentary. That said, I'm sure that what they are stating is factual for some slice in time. But as we know, you don't make a generalization based on 1 or 2 things. There may be 50 people who have positive. Again, that said, that was their experience. You can't erase that. Part of the reason why it makes a difference that we will have 268 rooms is that we have a different bargaining power than an individual does. We have the ability to create an environment, demand to have a certain accountability, and those are the things that we're going to be focusing on. So that's a very different situation than an individual renting a room, renting an apartment. We will be one of the largest renters in that apartment complex, and we can demand a different level of service. That's what we're committed to.
Okay, can I finish now? So, as I was saying, I spent hours on this research, so it's not just randomly selected. While there were good reviews...
No, that's what I'm saying. It isn't randomly selected.
Okay. While there were good reviews, majority of them were bad. And majority of them were saying how their complaints were not being properly addressed. Not only that, but we live on the west side of Atlanta. It is completely ignorant to ignore the fact that it is not safe outside of these gates. During Spellbound, when I came, that was what was completely repeated. That's why I felt safe coming here. So it is completely unfair to say that that was the case. And as far as being able to hold people accountable, not many people here are being held accountable because plenty of people did not get housing. And the people who did get housing, plenty of them did not get adequate or desirable housing. And I have the stats here to show it because me and my team just spent hours and hours going door to door trying to find out who got housing and doing surveys. So let's be very clear. No one is being held accountable. And that is an issue because people are trusting you with their children. People are trusting you with their lives. People who could have gone to other places. We had other opportunities. We had other places we could have gone. I would have rather been told I can't come to Spelman than have to come to Spelman and have to suffer with this. There's no reason that I, as a 16-year-old, should have to live off campus on the west side of Atlanta with no family here. I'm from out of state. All of my friends are from out of state. There's not barely anyone I know that has gotten housing.
So I can feel your pain.
1 second, guys, 1 second. I'm sorry, really?
Talk to, for you specifically, I think you might be who we talk to your parents, and so we're aware of your age and
No,
what we need to
my
do
parents haven't called.
to-
That's another person, and that just shows how much this issue keeps on going and persists.
So just give me a moment.
Okay.
Right?
So-
in fairness, no place is perfect. We can admit to that. I can share that I did go out to West Point yesterday. I went out there 5 or 6 years ago when we were considering. I do see the renovations that they've done. They've done about $3-4 million of renovation. I was able to, the Westmark is different than a lot of public-private places, like the mix in terms of the administration that's there is a part of the owner organization. So it's not a third party. These people actually work directly for the people who have purchased the Westmart, and it's under new management. And so, hold on. And then we'll make sure everybody gets some questions, and I don't mind staying back and talk to you, directly. But they have put some money into it. We're trying to get as much of the Spelman students on the same 2 floors and locations. We also have invested in, I put it in the budget, and thanks to our CFO, we're going to have an RD that's out there. We're going to have 2 RAs that are out there so that we have somebody real time. We're going to have an RD at Gannett and Calvert. We're going to have an RA at each of those locations. And we're also investing in an off-campus housing liaison, which will be a professional staff that works at Spelman, but that will be the direct person that can address whatever issues that might be they come across. Again, no place is perfect. The same thing can be said at any of the off-campus student housing locations. And as Dr. Gayle said, it's very true that when people are dissatisfied, they're going to write ugly reviews. And so I can just say, but I can talk to you more about you being 16 years old and being on campus. We can talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, and I would love to continue to have that conversation with you. But do you know how soon ago or how far ago it was that they got under new management?
Because one of the reviews I just read to you, not one of them is over 1 month old, and the earliest one is from 4 days ago.
It's been really new. But again, I think...
How new is what I'm asking.
Within a couple of months, I think that they have.
A couple of months, and I just said that 1 month,
Yeah.
1 month, 4 days.
Yeah. So let's do this so that we can give other people an opportunity. Why don't you and I, let's just have a conversation on Monday, if it's okay. I'll get your information. I have my assistant to reach out to you so we can talk more one-on-one with some of your concerns. And this gives us an opportunity for others to be able to speak. I value what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, but we can't solve some of the things you want to do tonight. And so let's talk more on Monday, okay?
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To be fair, I did not get to say my question. I only got to say the things that referenced my question.
I know.
So could I ask
Yeah,
it?
but unless it's something general, I think for things that are very specific to people, let's figure out a way to have the dialogue with Dr. Holloman and the housing staff about things that are very specific.
For me, I believe that this question is pretty general because you're trying to send a lot of students to this place. So my question is, how are you, as an administration that claims to be able to hold people accountable, how are you going to provide people with adequate and desirable housing that leaves them feeling safe and that does not put them in a position where they are homeless or they are having to live in a home that they don't feel safe in and they don't feel like they're getting the full Spelman experience they were promised and paid for?
So let me say this about paying for your experience. Sisterhood does not have a price on it. And your sisterhood is going to be there. There are many students now that are off campus and still feeling the part.
Sisterhood is not the full experience.
So hold on. And so what is very important about this guarantee that I think is important to say. Going into these guarantee arrangements, and we actually will have probably about 400 or 500 off-campus housing spaces. The guarantee allows for families and students to not have to do a background check, to not have to do a criminal check, and it also pays for the deposit that students don't have to worry about in families. So say, for example, if you're at the Westmart and you're not in one of the guarantees, you likely will have to show 5 to 6 months of earnings to be able to even just qualify. So the guarantee helps to make sure that we're helping students to be home secure so that they don't have to worry about going out trying to find apartments on their own. And it is just a great investment from the college. It's going to be a lot of millions of dollars to the college that are going to make sure that we try to help our students to be having a sense is dholloman, DHOLLOMAN @spelman.edu. Please give me some grace period because we have family weekend, and so we're going to go through that. And on Monday, I will make sure that my assistant reaches out to set the appointment. Okay? And we'll talk more. All right, thank you. Thanks so much.
Good evening. My name is Kennedy Rogers. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and I first would like to thank you guys for opening up this forum for candid conversation. I'm going to pivot a little bit from housing and really touch on the heart of Spelman College. Spelman College prides itself on creating compassionate, driven, global leaders of tomorrow. In fact, we emphasize leadership and social justice. So, how can we as an institution remain silent on the genocide of Palestinian people?
Yeah, so I don't know that we've remained silent. I think there's been a lot of dialogue around it. You know, there's been open opportunities to have to have forums. You know, I know that students have been very involved in the discussion of the issues. We're an academic institution. We're not an advocacy organization. And so we don't state positions on issues, but we do have dialogue around that so that each of us as individuals can shape positions based on the best information possible. You know, I want to continue to be able to have that. We could have a town hall about Palestine if we want to. You know, but I think there's a difference between whether we institutionally state positions, which is not the role of a college campus, versus making sure that we keep open dialogue about an issue that I think people are very passionate about. And we want to continue to have that dialogue.
Thank you for stating your position.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Cassell. I'm a first-year comparative women's studies, religious studies, double major. I'm here, I had to take out $40,000 of private loans and federal loans. Spelman just gave me $1,000 for a whole year as a need-based student with an expected family contribution of $0. I know I'm blessed that I have housing, but I call that tentative because I may not be able to come back next year because of my financial situation. And I know I'm not the only one. A lot of my Spelman sisters and siblings. I was also at the convocation the other day, or it was a couple of weeks ago, where the $100 million donation was announced. But from what I understand, current students won't necessarily be benefiting from that much. So I understand the idea of securing Spelman's future, but we are Spelman's present and we create Spelman's future. So how will Spelman take care of us right now?
Yeah, so, you know, we are because we don't have a large endowment, like many very wealthy schools. Spelman, you know, is financially very healthy, but we're not a wealthy school like, you know, a lot of our, you know, big Ivy League institutions or, you know, small liberal arts, women's liberal arts colleges that have large endowments. So, you know, endowments are what give colleges the opportunity to provide more financial aid. We do the best we can with federal dollars that we get for financial aid, any state dollars, any scholarships from corporations or individuals. So we do the best that we can with the resources that we have. And, you know, it is just literally the position that we're in without being a school that has large amounts of flexible funding to be able to have those kinds of scholarships.
I understand that. I know that, I don't know if anyone knows about Agnes Scott. I know like that they're not as prestigious or have less of an endowment than Spelman does, but currently they're beginning to offer students $25,000 guaranteed off their tuition. And I know that Spelman is definitely a wealthier institution than them. I've looked it up. So why I've seen that Spelman has a lot of merit scholarships for incoming students, which, you know, I think in general, all of us, if we're here, I think we have merit just by being here at Spelman College as the institution that it proclaims itself to be. But as someone who comes from a working class, low income family, I don't really feel like Spelman cares about students like me who have to constantly fight and like, I'm trying my best, like I'm fighting to prove myself here, and I don't feel like whatever I do will be good enough. Like I'm begging for help and I'm not sure where that's gonna come from. I go to find the financial aid office. It's like this cold, like atmosphere where I don't even feel like I can go ask for help. So that's just my concern. I've seen students who have GoFundMes because they might not be able to come back the next semester. And as Black women, we are an economically disenfranchised population. So I'm just wondering, I believe Spelman can be an excellent institution, but I'm just confused as to why an institution that says it invests itself in the education of Black women who are one of the most marginalized populations, not just in this country, but in the world. Why isn't there being more done for those of us who don't have the financial means to be able to, my parents can't pay for this. So that's just my biggest concern, not just for me, but for my sisters and siblings as well.
Yeah, no, it's to me, it's one of the most painful parts of my job, and understanding the incredible talent that we have and the limited resources that we have. We do as much as we can with what we have. We don't have. It's not as if we have money that we're keeping back and not giving it to students. We prioritize students and scholarships with the resources that we have. I don't know how Agnes Scott does it. They're a smaller school. They have different pots of resources in ways that we don't have. We do the very most we can with the resources that we have. It's why my job number one is get out and raise more money. If we can get more money, if we can get more money into our endowment, if we can find more scholarships, then we can give more scholarships. We can't give scholarships with money we don't have.
So is the $100 million we just got not going, so it's not gonna help students
We're not
now?
gonna see it. We're not gonna see it.
People will
in the
start
next
seeing
2 to
it
3
within a
years.
year. There will be some small amount that will come from investing it. And then we use the returns from the investment are what gets spent. That's how an endowment works. We have to honor the intent of donors. We can't spend money in the ways that donors didn't ask us to spend it. We were given the money to put into our endowment, which will secure Spelman's future. That was the choice of the donor to endow the resources. So we can't spend it.
I understand that, like the business and logistics side of it. I just wish that was something that was explained to students better at the convocation, because what we were told, like, it was very vague about how the money was going to work. We were told 75 million of it was going to go to endowed scholarships for students, and 25 million was going to go to renovating housing and making the quality of life a lot better on campus. So it's just kind of heart-wrenching to know that something that was made such a huge deal and people were talking about it, that it's really, for those of us, we're still going to have to be in this struggle for the next 4 years, and maybe even those who come after us, that there's not going to be any real change to our financial situation.
Well, yeah, no, I totally understand that, and I think you're right. I think there's more we should continue to communicate about it. One of the things that I hope will happen as a result of it is the intangible benefit that comes with people realizing that Spelman is a good value to invest in. People paid attention to the fact that we got that $100 million gift. The number of people who now have said to me, wow, Spelman is worth investing in. So I don't think that even though those dollars are meant for, an endowment that will continue to grow and continue to be able to give us resources, I think that there will be some more immediate impact from it as well. And that's what I hope to be able to capitalize on and leverage those dollars for more immediate dollars as well. So we're working on it. And again, it's heartbreaking to me because I hear you,
It's just that I don't feel like Spelman sees me as a worthy investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you are a worthy investment, and we hope that we can do a better job of making sure you realize that.
Thank you.
I will also add really briefly that I definitely think a big part of this is transparency, right? But like proactive transparency and communication. So when I had heard about the $100 million donation, I'm class of 24, so we certainly, won't see that. But I know that we should be able to see that impact within a year, 2 years. But more importantly, one of the identifying themes that I'm noticing is like, we don't fully understand how is this truly gonna impact Spelman, right? I'm still not sure if I fully understand 100% how this is gonna impact Spelman, but we are working proactively to be able to understand this and to understand the breakdown behind these donations and similar type of donations too. So SGA specifically has a event coming up hosted by Anaya Welcher, our SGA Secretary of Business and Finance, in partnership with our Senior Vice President of Business and Finance, Ms. Dawn Austin. And so she is here in attendance.
Can you raise your
as well.
hand because she's here in the room?
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's listening to your all's concerns as well. And we specifically have an event, I think we've just posted about it. So please come out. I'll be in attendance taking notes to understand the breakdown. And while that doesn't certainly, address all of your concerns, because they're certainly valid, I do think that it provides additional information that we don't yet have about how do these donations actually impact our institution.
Thank you.
Hello. First off, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out today. SGA, thank you for being in attendance today. I want to give props where props is due. I also want to thank the students who have so bravely come up to this podium and shared their personal testimony as to the problems. Yes, I said problems. The problems and plague that is coming to Spelman College. With that being said, I'm a person who believes in coming up with statistics. I'm a person who does not ask for things without providing evidence that this is something need be. So what I'm going to do today is offer you guys some help, right? Offer as a Spelman sister to help you guys out. So what me and my team have done here is we surveyed Spelman College. We went out there and we asked Spelmanites to answer some questions we had. So the first one was, did you receive housing? The second one, are you considering transferring or dropping out because you have not received housing? Would you believe that over 50% of students we surveyed said yes? Would you believe that out of the 5 of us in this line, I just asked 4 of them and they said yes? Would you believe that I said yes, right? So what I'm gonna do today is ask you a very clear question. I got 2 of them. Number 1, are you planning on educating our parents as to what you are expecting us to live in? Because my parents were not aware that Gamut Hall is about a mile, give or take some change, a mile away with spotty shuttle service. Can I ask you guys a question? Can you raise your hand if the shuttle did not pick you up when it said it was supposed to? Can I get you guys to raise your hand, because it didn't pick me up. I know y'all are scared, but this is important, okay? The shuttle didn't do what it said, so how are we trusting that? I don't think we can. Number 2, how exactly do I have to pay more to live in a place I did not ask to live in? When I came to Spelman College, I wanted to live at Spelman College. I did not want to live on MLK. I did not want to live in the mix. I did not want to live in a place that I did not know was safe and without enough time for me to vet it. You earlier said that it takes about 6 months for you to go through a process to actually get into an apartment. A part of that is because you need to vet it, right? A part of the reason why it takes so long for you to be there, excuse me if I misheard you, a part of the reason why it takes so long for you to get into an apartment is because you have to look through the cracks and crevices to make sure you are safe. Spelman siblings, do you feel safe? I think that was enough of an answer to tell you guys how we're feeling. Guys, I'm not here to sit there and yell at you or to make you feel like we are not supporting you. I support Spelman College. I'm here today because I love it so much. I'm speaking to you to try and get it to change. I'm a differently abled student who was put in off-campus housing. I went to my student access center, your student access center, And I said, hey guys, I'm scared. I have a wheelchair, I have a walker. Sometimes it's hard for me to move. If the shuttle doesn't work, what do you guys want me to do? What's the protocol? What's gonna happen? And she said, I'm gonna tell you, you ready for this? She said, well, Olivia, this hasn't really happened before. This is a new territory. And I said, okay, great, we're charting new territory and you're asking me to go into blind when my health is in danger? I'll provide you the email, I got you. But while that is all being said, right, I'm in a place where I'm like, hey, listen, I'm living in Gamet Hall. I have no issue with living in a place as long as it's clean, it's safe, right? That's the only thing I need to be clean and safe. But now I'm paying $1,000 more than the students at Gamet pay for their own housing. Spelmanites, I encourage you all to look at the prices they pay and then look at the prices our school is charging us. Right? And then on top of all that, because, I want to continue to speak, on top of all of that is happening, it is also very important to note, lastly, you guys, I understand we are in a crisis. Crisis does not mean that they have the answer right now. Crisis does not mean that I'm looking at my president and saying, fix it today. That is not what I'm asking her to do. However, what I am asking is for her to look into our concerns. We have to hold each other accountable within reason, you guys. This is a crisis and an issue. I am not asking for you guys to poof something into air and to make everything perfect, but I'm asking you guys to keep my safety in check, keep my finances in check, and keep my siblings in check. Because right now, none of those are being checked. None of them are.
No, thank you. And I think, this is the kind of feedback that's very helpful. So for instance, I don't know if people who, Dawn, if you know about the...
I can share the survey also. I would love for you to share it with you guys.
The shuttle, if it's not working, we need to know that so that we can make a difference. Yeah. I don't know that we know that we've heard that before.
Last year I reported it 3 times, and then you also have a program in which you said that our campus security would be willing to pick us up if we were in danger. I called that number 6 different times, and it was not answered. So when we talk about not knowing, I completely understand, not being able to hear things, but then don't tell us to report it to a page that's not being answered. Because I did the protocol. Yeah. I wasn't heard, I wasn't answered, and again, my safety was not in check.
Okay. No, it's good. And I think these are great comments, and this is why I think we do need to have something, and we'll talk about it afterwards. Yeah. But we can't even get started if we aren't being, customer focused and really holding people accountable for the things that we promise and trying not to overpromise for things that we can't deliver on. So
thank you so much. And one last quick thing. And you guys, I hope that you feel comfortable to do this because I think everybody's here today to listen to you guys. So this is the point where we have to say, speak up for yourselves, okay? So my last question to everybody is, can you raise your hand if you do not think you can afford to live off campus or continue to attend Spelman College in the year 2024? Because I can't. So if I do not get the housing that I was once promised, you are telling me, Olivia, I don't care about you, transfer. Thank you.
Dawn, I don't know if you want to talk to the issues of off-campus housing.
So I think I heard, Olivia, you mentioned the pricing for Gammon and Talbot. So I actually haven't seen the pricing on the website. So we'll take a look at it.
My friend lives at ITC currently, and I was able to look at the billing statement, so I'm not even looking at the online portal. I'm looking at what she's actively paying, right? And I understand that you guys probably have to pay a little bit more because we're moving into someplace, and I get it. But the question is, why is it, from the comparison I made from the prices you all sent out, it's anywhere from $1,000 to $1,600 more to live in the same place that students have lived previously. And we do have current Spelmanites who live there now, and the price is also different for them. So was there an increasement due to the fact that we had to move in there, or are you guys talking up the prices to cover for something else that we would have to pay for them?
No, I can share that we wouldn't be upcharging for you to live there.
We're just concerned. It's just coming from place of concern. I'm looking at Gamma right now. I can't afford $13,000. That's the price for the room that I had to choose. I had the last time. I had to choose that room. And for the meal plan that I don't have to pay because I have to do the meal plan, it is $13,000. I do not have $13,000.
Okay, so we'll take a look at it. Okay. Yes. Next.
first-year comparative women's studies major from Flint, Michigan. As someone from Flint, I'm used to institutions ignoring and covering up issues regarding the physical and mental well-being of those they are supposed to be serving. So I'm truly disgusted with the actions of this administration. Dr. Gayle, you said the renovations for Morehouse James and Abbey has been years in the making. If that's the case, why wasn't there an effective plan to support students regarding housing? Because you've had the time to find these solutions.
No, so what I said, or what I
you said years in the making. That was your exact words.
No. Yeah, what I meant is, what I was trying to convey is that we know that Abbey and Morehouse James needed to be renovated, and we would have done it previously. Some of it has been resources. We can't, and so we didn't have the resources. We also, because of the housing crunch, we didn't not want to take them offline to renovate them, because that would have taken that many housing rooms offline. So there's no great time to do it. We now have the resources to do it. We have the plans to do it. So we want to move ahead and get those done.
Okay, you still didn't answer my question, though.
Yeah, in the meantime, these are the solutions that we've been trying to put into place, understanding that we don't have more on-campus housing, so we need to find other housing that we think can be suitable to put students. So that's the plan, and that's what we've been working on. How can we make sure, so that we've been working on ITC, which is close. Now we've added the additional, we have the mix, we've added the additional West Mars. So these are the things that we've been working on to make sure. And every year, it's hard to predict, because every year there's a new class, there are new numbers, and we're constantly looking at how do we try to get a plan as proactively as possible to be able to place students.
Okay, you say you want to act proactively, but when it comes to most of the things this administration does, you act reactively, not proactively. So
yeah,
why is that?
Yeah, so I would, and I will grant you that I think we do need to be even more proactive. We try to be as proactive as we can, and we keep trying to be more proactive. Each year is a different year, and it is very hard to always know in advance what are the things that we're going to have to calibrate and change from the year before. It's why we've been talking about one of the things we need to do is to have a more consistent approach to this, including having some sort of a working group that looks at this, looks at it every couple of months, makes predictions, and help us to better figure out how to be even more proactive. We try to be as proactive as we can. We clearly need to keep figuring out how to be more proactive. So I think your point's well taken, and that's what we hope that we will continue to do.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Brown, and I'm a first-generation student, health science major on the pre-med track, and I actually have two concerns today. The first one is, it's said that the mix will be an option through Spelman for off-campus living, but I've been told that if you did not get a housing slot, you cannot use Spelman's sponsorship for aid to pay the rent. So is the mix really an option for us who did not get a housing slot if we're having to come out of pocket for rent?
So if you've done an application, did you do a housing application? So if you've done an application, those are the students that will be, fine. You'll be able to go in.
Yeah, if you did not get the time slot, you cannot apply through the housing slot.
No, absolutely. That's the additions of Westmore are for the students that didn't get a housing slot, a selection.
But I'm asking about the mix, so I'm not able to live in the mix if I did not get a housing slot.
So it's a possibility, because what we're going to do is we're opening up. What we're going to do is open up, when I was talking about the housing room selection, is we're going to open it up, bring in the 258 students that are currently sophomores, and then people will be able to choose some different slots. And so if a space opens up at the mix and you're able to get the mix, then you can go, to the mix. And I think there's still some room available at the mix.
Not for me, like I can't go in.
But we're gonna open it up. If you're already into the system and you applied for housing.
I did not get housing.
Right? So for those that applied for housing, but you did not get an opportunity to do a housing selection, you will now be able to get a housing selection.
Through Westmar or the mix?
So we're going to open it up. And it depends on, we're not forcing everybody to go to the Westmar.
Okay.
I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Right? And so what we're hopeful is that I think when I checked earlier this afternoon, there were still some spots at the mix. So once you're able to go into the room selection, if it's space at the mix, you can go to the mix. If it's available, and there's still some space available.
What day would this be available for us to go and select?
We need to finalize the contract. So what we did and what Westmar did was pivoted really quickly. And we have a letter of intent. They've already let us know that they have 260 slots available. And so we want to make sure that we get the final contract to be able to look at. And then we're hopeful early next week that we'll be able to continue the process.
And that's for students who did not get housing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my next concern is, I'm also worrying about the fact that since it's not our fault that 2 dorms will be offline this year, leading to less beds and forcing us to move off campus, how come there aren't more resources for low-income students like myself who cannot afford off-campus living?
So again, I think, right, this is where the guarantee comes in. Because if it were not for the guarantee, and I'll just use the mix as an example, let's think about the mix. For most students that are not in the guarantee, they have to come up with 6 months of whatever your income is, right? So say if my income was $5,000 a month.
Who's income?
No.
But it's more about the comparable cost between being on campus and off campus. The comparable cost. Dawn wants to.
So we did a lot of searching around the community and in the area to see if we could find apartment living that was affordable, and we figured that if we partnered with them, they would give us a much more affordable rate than if you tried to go and rent the apartment yourself. We checked at I think it's Ashley Landing, Scholars Landing, some of the apartments, and unfortunately, it's just that they didn't have the number of beds that we needed at this point. So it's a challenge for even the college to go and find some spaces that we can partner with other apartment developers. Unfortunately, not the best answer to your question. But the cost is us Spelman engaging with the apartments is comparable to, we try to make it comparable to Spelman's, to you living on campus.
Right, that's the point, is that we're not, you're not paying more to be off campus.
Okay, so I'm here off of loans, so the loans, it's hard for them to go to apartment living. I would have to pay out of my pocket. I would have to get a job and save up over the summer to pay. Yes, I would.
No.
Not for the Spelman sponsor.
Not for the Spelman
sponsor.
sponsor. No, the Spelman sponsor is treated just as if you were in on-campus housing. So whatever is on your financial package and whatever your aid is, that is what's going to cover the mix or the Westmar, whatever. When we go to them, we get comparable of what it would be if you were in the BDT Suites or you were in Abbey. So you're not going to have to pay, no one is going to have to pay anything extra out of pocket.
Right.
It would be as if you're in an on-campus housing residence.
For any of the sponsored, anything that is Spelman sponsored, so the mix, Westmar, others, if it's Spelman sponsored versus you going personally and doing it, you're not going to pay any more than if you were in a dormitory.
Okay, well, I was just confused because there was a lack of transparency with the communication, so I believe
Right.
that I would have to come out of pocket.
No,
because
no.
what
That's
housing
the
office
point
told
I was
me.
trying to get to. Is that it is
Yeah.
it's the same, and you will be able to use your same resources that you would if you were on campus housing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Penorte. I'm an English and I'm a double major English and psychology in a first year. My question is, how are you accounting for the safety, economic, and social factors of students living off campus, considering it was not our choice to not live on Spelman campus, but we are being put in unsafe, expensive environments, causing students to consider transferring as a solution? How are you protecting Spelmanites?
So each of the areas have, one, I think we should start, our police work very closely with both APD as well as those securities that are at each of the places. Each of the places that we've selected have security that is there. All of them have security. We made very sure of that. And we try to make sure that we make these spaces as secure as possible. I have said this before, I said it at the protest, no one can promise 100% safety, right? A few years ago, we had an incident on our campus, right inside of our gates, right? But what we want to do is make sure that we make it as safe as possible, that the places are secured and has security on site. So it's not like you're going out on your own to an apartment complex that might not have around-the-clock security. So at the Westmar, not only do they have a head security person, they have a check-in at the gate. You have to check in your guest at the gate. They have key fobs. And so I feel very confident about the security at the place.
But I do think, as we've been saying throughout this, what we've got to do is to make sure that we get the right feedback, because it's not unreasonable that, there could be safety issues. As Dr. Holloman said, we've had safety issues here on our own campus. We want to make sure that we are aware of what the experience is that you're having so that we can continue to make it as safe an environment as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With all due respect, you said you would feel you're confident, but you don't have to live there.
Well, I live down the street.
I
actually live a mile and a half down from the mix. So I walk past it all the time.
But I think it's not a fair comparison.
Yeah.
I think you have to keep letting us know what your experience is so that we can make sure that it is the best experience for you as possible. That's all we can do. That's our commitment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Catherine Nome. I'm a first-year student.
Audience, can we make sure that we can hear our Spelman sister, Spelman sibling?
So my question is regarding ITC, specifically Talbot Hall, and how last semester they removed many students. I think they removed all their students at Morris Brown and gave them little to no notice. So obviously this is an issue, and this is a really big issue because there are many students who do not live close to Spelman. And even students that do live what's considered close to Spelman on paper, that isn't a reality due to traffic in Atlanta. For example, I live 33 miles away from Spelman, but due to traffic, that's an hour and a half. And I have early classes. I'm gonna have early classes throughout most of college. And that would be considered many people's best case scenario. That would be a preferred scenario because we have students living in California. We have students living in New York. There's students living internationally. There are students who could not go home for the holidays because of how far they lived. And not everyone has family nearby to help support them. For example, I'm a first-generation American. I do not have family all across the country that can just help me up at the drop of a hat if I'm kicked off from where I'm supposed to be staying. So my question is, I understand that ITC is in charge of their housing and they have their rules, but if there continues to be students that are removed from their housing, what would Spelman do to support these students?
So you're absolutely correct, right? ITC had some very stringent rules, right, in the round of visitation. So what we're doing this year, we will take over. It's going to be completely Spelman students there. There'll be no other students. And we've been very clear with them that we are managing the property. and that it will fall under the regular housing rules. We'll have the same visitation as you have on campus. Now, they are a religious institution, and so sometimes on the first floor where they have offices, they have asked us for our students to think about, as they walk through, because they might have, this is their, college, they're a religious institution, so it might be bishops and things of that nature. But we have the complete space. It'll only be Spelman students, and it'll be managed by Spelman campus and under our rules. And we'll have an RD over there for Gammon and Talbot, and then we'll have RA. So it'll be like living, on campus.
So you can guarantee that no students will be kicked off?
No students are going to be kicked off. And even when they attempted to do that last year, they did move out some students from Morris Brown. They did move out some students from Morehouse. We would not let them kick our students out like that. We work really hard.
Right, for the same things.
Yeah.
Right.
If you violate a code of conduct, then you can be kicked off or you can be removed from housing. So they're going to have the same housing rules, the same community standards, the same code of conduct. So if you are in violation of that, then you can be removed from that housing, just as it could happen here on campus.
Okay, and I have a follow-up question. So while I'm happy that these changes are being made, my question is, why were these changes not communicated before the housing portal opened? For example, like my housing slot, because of the time that my housing slot was, my only options were ITC or the mix. So there were many concerns about these things that happened last semester. So why was this not communicated to students before they had to pick?
As soon as we realized the number of students, Dr. Gayle and a few of us met and really wanted to think through how we could make sure that we would have housing options for that number of students. The number was indicative of the higher class, but it was larger than what was anticipated. So as soon as we found the number, next year, it'll be very different experience because we already have all of that in stock. And so it'll be a very different experience next year because they will already be, all of those locations will be in the housing.
But your question was, why didn't you get the communication sooner? And I think that we, again, I own that we may not have been as proactive in our communication as we should. And, let's work on making sure we do that better next time. So, sorry, I think that there are, I think that we could have been better in some of our communication.
Thank you, and I have one more question. So for students that are living at the mix, from what I'm told, that there was buses going to Clark Atlanta last school year. So I was wondering, why is this not being continued, especially considering that not every student is from a background where they can afford to have a car and pay gas? And not every student is comfortable driving in this area.
The shuttle service is still available. We had a shuttle service that the entire time that we've been at the mix. We had a shuttle service that goes from the mix to our campus throughout the day, throughout the evening, and she even extended the service to go down to the grocery store. So we had a bus,
okay,
a van. Mm-hmm.
So this bus will be present next school year, and there will be accountability to make sure that it actually comes on time.
Now, I can't promise that. This is Atlanta, right, with the traffic. But she had stuck on the schedule. We didn't get much, I didn't get any complaints about the van service that we had. And so it was pretty timely, and she was very flexible about adjusting.
Okay, thank you.
I think I might be too short for this mic. I can take the mic off. Okay. The beans are too short. Okay. Hello. First, I wanted to thank you for coming out to this town hall tonight. It's very respectful that you are here listening to the concerns of the Spelman residents here in the community. And I just want to applaud for that as well, and also the SGA for holding this town hall meeting as well. It really shows that you are here actively trying to get the feedback needed here in the Spelman community and then taking back and doing the work. But if I could say from personal experience before going into my questions, I am very dissatisfied in how Spelman has been operating things, especially from this housing crisis so far. I feel like, in my opinion, that everything that has been mentioned and shared for the administration is just falling on deaf ears, because we have Spelman students here who aren't able to afford basic afford housing and get adequate housing as needed. And some Spelman students will be going homeless come next year. And even like mentioned before, some Spelman students may not even be able to afford to come to Spelman prior to this fall semester. And I just really think as if it's very, very disheartening and very heartbreaking to hear that these Spelman sisters that, even though I haven't gotten to know yet, but would like to know in the future, that they're having anxiety and trying to find ways to every single day, especially for the low-income families who are barely scraping the surface, such as myself, to afford here at Spelman. But hopefully, luckily, and God bless that I was able to find adequate housing for come next year. So my first question that I have is, what steps is Spelman going to take to support the students they've misplaced for housing? Will buses or softwares be provided for students forced to be moved off campus? Because I have myself had experience the shuttle not coming when needed. When I needed to get groceries, I was staying outside for maybe a whole hour or two for the shuttle not to come and for me not to be able to get my groceries. So I would like to know, what is Spelman doing for those things to be put
Was
in
that the
place?
Woodruff shuttle?
Yes.
So we will follow up tomorrow morning with the Woodruff shuttle and just really make sure that we address that issue first thing in the morning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, seeing how Talbot Hall and Gammon Hall is off campus, when I was told, when I came down with my mother for Spellbound in April, we were stressed the importance of you will feel safe here at Spelman, but as soon as you walk off campus, it's like an open arena. Anything and everything could possibly happen to you. So will there be ways for students that are Spelman sponsored, who are like at Gammon Hall and Talbot Hall, be ensured safety when it comes to getting from here to Spelman's campus? Because personally, I feel like as if those things are not going to be put in place. Again, falling on deaf ears. And me feeling this, I should not feel as if me breaking my back and breaking my bone, who my mother is a single mother who has put out 2 loans this semester to make sure that I am here at Spelman this year and for the next 3 years that I'm here. So what are the policies being put in place to ensure that the students that are off housing get the safety that they need, and also transportation as well, so they're able to come to class and things on time?
So we definitely will address with the Woodruff shuttle. We selected those areas because they are on the Woodruff shuttle line. In terms of the safety, for Talbot, Gammon, and the ITC complex, our police actually patrol that area as well, just as if they would patrol our campus. I'll talk with the chief tomorrow to make sure that if we need to increase that frequency, that we can do that, but we're absolutely able to do that in that area. And then that shows some more Spelman presence. The chief and I have actually talked about that because we're going to have complete Spelmanites there. And so we've already set up, our chief has met with their security forces to really help vet with them. And also there was the discussion about the and they're adding, and that's out of the result of conversations with our chief, they're adding additional security staff on both of the locations.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the other question that I did have too pertains to me personally. I was accepted for my accommodations for housing, but I didn't get housing at all. So why are the students who put in for accommodations for the housing getting accepted for the housing, but didn't get housing at all?
So housing accommodations do not automatically guarantee housing. What we attempt to do is to meet the accommodations as we can, and that's not an excuse. That has nothing to do with the housing stock. That having an accommodation doesn't automatically guarantee housing. However, we work very diligently to try for our students that have accommodation needs to meet those needs. And so if you could come see me on Monday, and I can work with the disability office, and then we could have further discussions to make sure that we have you in the right space.
Thank you. And then just one last thing. This is not a question, but this is just off of feedback. Something that I've seen, even though I've only been here for 2 semesters now, something that I see that I would like to be put in place more is the communication and transparency. Because that's great that extra security will be put in place for Talbot Hall and Gammon, but that should be shared to us as a community so that me and my Spelman sisters should know that, okay, at least Spelman, even though it's not the answers that we want, there is still something that's actively being put in place to ensure that Spelman does actually care, because my fellow Spelman sister said that she is not being heard. And it's disheartening and heartbreaking to hear that she's not being heard. I came to Spelman for one reason, because I felt though as if, even though I'm coming to an all-women school, my voice was going to be heard, and that's not being put in place. And I think the transparency and communication, that's something that should be in the forefront, because as great as a school as Spelman is, this is, in lack of a better word, this is absolutely a mess. It really is. So I think going into the fall and spring of 2024 and 2025, the transparency and the communication needs to be put in place so that our parents, us, and any of the incoming freshman class should know that these things are being put in place, and really stress the importance that housing is not going to be guaranteed after your freshman year, because that's all I had to say.
Well, duly noted, and I think we'll definitely.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And, communication has come up multiple times, and I think, we want to work on what's the best way of getting communication out, because as you all know, we all have information overload. We put things out in different formats, sometimes on, different social media, sometimes on email, sometimes. It's just hard to know what's the best way to make sure that communication gets out and people are attending to it. So it's just something we have to just keep working on and help us get better at our communication, because it's not lack of transparency in the sense that we're trying to hide anything. It's just, sometimes it is really just hard with the pace of change and the things that are happening to know how best to get information out. So let's just keep working on it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to first thank you guys for being here tonight. My name is Bria Witherspoon. I'm a first-year political science major, Spanish minor on the pre-law track. And my question is, I understand that you want a diverse campus, that was mentioned, and that freshmen are definitely guaranteed housing. But my question is, why aren't sophomores necessarily prioritized for housing? Because there shouldn't be a reason where 17, 18, 19-year-olds are being forced to be displaced from campus when, say, a senior applied for housing and they're prioritized housing over me, and they've been here for 3-4 years, and they get to have that college experience. I would love to stay on campus. I would love to be immersing myself within the campus life for another year, but due to the housing selection and the lottery tickets, I'm not able to do that. And my other question is, I know you mentioned that more spaces need to be available for commuter students. How do you plan on being proactive with that commuter space situation and not reactive? And then additionally, in terms of communication, housing emails need to be clearer and more professional, in my opinion, because there should be no reason that housing is responding to a student's emails with the words, "Please respond and state why you think you would be guaranteed housing." To me, that is extremely unprofessional. That should not be how faculty communicates with our students. And college is supposed to be the best years of your lives, and what many students are finding is that it's the most stressful right now. As prior to people have said, Spelman College was their dream school. They could have gone anywhere else, but they chose to be here and pay that tuition where they could have gone somewhere who actually gave them some money. And it's our choice to change the world, right? Nobody wants to give up that dream, but many are considering transferring just because they cannot afford to be here. And also, in terms of transparency, I know that you guys mentioned the good things about Spelman, how Giles was on a different world, this was on his historical fact and things like that. But on these tours, you guys need to mention to Spelman 28 girls and their families that housing after your first year is not guaranteed, because many of these Spelman 28 girls do not know that coming in. I've talked to some of them, some of my fellow Spelman sisters have talked to the Spelman 28 girls, and they are shocked to find out that. Their parents are shocked. Some of their parents I've talked to are already looking for apartments for them right now, and that should not be the case. You should not have that stress on figuring out where you need to be your sophomore year of college when you're trying to get in your first semester of college.
First with the communication, I totally agree, right? I think we got to figure out the right way to get the message out that gives enough information that is not overwhelming. And I think we try, as so many modalities that we have, to get information out. So we got to do that. Definitely we'll follow up with housing about the statement that was in there. The thing about what we will be able to do proactively next year is, now that we have the amount of housing stock that we have between on-campus and campus-sponsored housing, what the plan is first years are guaranteed, and we will prioritize as many of the sophomores as we can to be on campus, and then that will leave for the third and fourth years, we have enough stock for them to maybe be off campus, right?
Yeah.
And so what we want to try to do is make sure that that first and second year is not as stressful as you were mentioning, anxiety. And I will definitely, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in senior team, and I'll talk to my colleague about how we are delivering the message when we have the tours and things of that nature. But those are great
Yeah,
points.
and I think after these last couple of years that have been a bit less predictable than we have had in the past, I think we're learning some lessons, and I know that's not a very satisfactory answer for those for this year, but I think we will be able to be more proactive about some of these things in future years.
Another point was something that you mentioned, that you don't want emails to be overwhelming about housing and communication such as that. But I feel like many students here can attest to the same point, that we would rather receive overwhelming amount of emails about housing and residence life and things that actually pertain to us, other than the other number of countless thousands and thousands of emails we receive every single day that do not even pertain to things that we do.
So what are the kinds of emails that you get that don't pertain to things that are important?
We get emails like, I know that you send out masses of emails to SC all students, SC class of 2025, 26, 27, but some of those emails that we receive, I can find some right now where I just look at it and I'm like, this doesn't apply to me, delete.
So maybe one thing is, because it's hard to control how many emails, because there's so many different departments and different ways that interact with students, and maybe we could at least be better about highlighting this is important, or putting something on so that it's very clear, housing, please read, or whatever, so that as you're scanning your emails, you're looking at the ones that have, that are clearly of importance. So we'll look at that, because it's hard to control. I mean, we all are overloaded with email. And the biggest thing is we don't want you to miss the ones that have important information. So we should just, be talking about how do we flag that better.
Yes, that would be great, because I know for the housing emails, we don't have that red exclamation point on them.
So
they
we
just
could,
come through as a normal
yeah,
email.
and there are all kinds of ways that you can flag that says urgent, the little red flag that says read now. So we'll look at some of those things, and we've got some of our communications colleagues here, so we'll take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alana Stanton. I'm a first-year political science and psychology concentrated in mental health double major Spanish minor. I hope all is well with you. Today, my question will be concerning the living conditions within the current housing options. I'll preface this by saying I live on the 3rd floor of a dorm with no AC, And because of that, during my first month of living on campus, I had to take a week's leave because my dorm reached degrees in the hundreds and I could not sleep. Currently in my dorm hall, there are conditions such as mold, a bug infestation, heat not working, windows not closing, layers and years of grime in the microwave, toilets that don't flush, lack of hot water, and much more. Many of these conditions I would consider uninhabitable, and by Georgia tenant laws, they would also consider it uninhabitable. And with that being said, why haven't these living conditions been addressed by the administration nor communicated with prospective students and parents?
What dorm do you live in?
Morehouse James.
So that's one of the dorms that we're taking offline so that we can renovate it.
Right, I understand that, but Morehouse James, from what I've heard from my Spelmanites, is one of the better dorms for freshmen. So like with Manly and HH, I've heard those are much worse.
Yeah, and I don't know, Dawn, if you want to talk about some of the plans, and again, I know these things are very immediate for you, but housing and renovating buildings and putting up new dormitories take time, so we're starting on that process. Morehouse James is one of the dorms that we are going to be renovating.
All of which I understand. I just feel like this has been an issue not for years. At this point, it's been decades, to be quite frank. So you're saying you're taking action, but you're still adding more years.
No, that's true. And we wish we could have done it earlier. That's part of why we're so thankful that we did get the money, and that is money that will go to immediately, where some of the money is going into our endowment. The money for the renovations of the dormitory is immediate, so we now have the resources to do it. It takes a lot of money, and now we have those resources to do it. And I don't know, Dawn, if you want to talk about any of the other plans and.
Sure. So we definitely acknowledge, and I'm sorry that you had that experience, Howard Harold and Manly and the non-air conditioned conditions. So we actually plan to tear those two dorms down and rebuild a newer dorm with additional beds. But of course, it takes time, unfortunately. With physical infrastructure projects, you have at least a year of planning. You have to design and develop those projects. And then it usually takes at least 18 to 24 months to actually construct them. And of course, we have to get the resources to do so. But that is definitely in the long-term plans. I would encourage you, if you do have an issue with your dorm where you're experiencing some type of maintenance issue, or you think you see some undesirable growth in your room or anywhere around, please use the AIM Ready tool in order to report those things. That helps us a lot to know that that's going on, and to track it. So we do try to address things as soon as we find out about them, and we'll be trying to move forward in future years.
Okay, and then as far as the communication issue, why wasn't it told to students?
Which communication, sorry?
The living conditions, all of the issues that I've stated, why weren't those communicated?
I think that, no, and I'm not using this as an excuse by any stretch of the imagination, but no living condition is gonna be perfect, right? So when I worked at Georgia State, and I see your faces, and I'm not making an excuse, but when I worked at Georgia State, which we had a brand new residence hall, Patton Hall, which was first years, ended up having a challenge with some mold. Another resident hall, which was brand newer, ended up having some kind of infestation with something, right? And so what I'm saying is that what we want to do is think forward thinking, and we understand that's why these spaces are being not only air conditioned, but renovated, right? Morehouse James is being basically
torn down,
fully gutted and renovated. And that's between those two projects, that's a $28 million investment to make sure that they are going to be a notch. And then right after next year, we start the phases for construction for the new residence halls. The college is also that there's a plot of land right behind the Science Center where the college has gone into a ground lease with some additional housing that will be there, that will be brand new. And there's also that space right behind the new parking lot, which is on Lee Street. There's some spaces back there that we own some of the land, Morehouse owns some of the land, and we've done a housing study already, a joint housing study, to look at putting some housing there as well. One of the biggest challenges being on this side of the city is that some of the public-private investors haven't always put as much emphasis here as they have in downtown area. And so when you see Georgia State and you see Courtyard 112 and you see renovation, the renovation, whatever. So we're looking to make sure that we can create adequate housing, newer housing, better housing as our students come in.
But to your question of why we didn't communicate it, I think what we try to do is to make sure that people appreciate that we have older dorms, and that with older dorms, there are likely to be more concerns and issues. We live in the South. It is hot and humid. There will be things like mold. We try to be as proactive about this. We have a regular system of inspection to make sure that we are not, that we're not getting behind some of the things that need to be done to keep buildings up to code and up to standards. But that's, again, why it's so important to continue to feed back to us so that we know when those problems exist. We try to let people know older dorms, they're not, these are not new facilities, they are going to have problems. We can probably be better, again, in that communication, but we don't try to hide the fact, and it's pretty obvious that these are old buildings and old dorms.
Okay, thank you for your response. During this town hall, I heard your administration and yourself as well talking about, making sure that we report the issues and that you hear, what's going on with the student experience. So with that being said, I would invite you to come to my dorm around April or May when the dorms are extremely hot so that you understand the student experience, so that you understand exactly what it's like to be in that dorm and trying to get a good night's sleep. Yeah.
No, and that's, again, that's why we're doing what we're doing, so that we do, in fact, have air-conditioned dorms across the campus. It will take some time for all of it, but that's our intention. We did, during the summer, come to the dorms so that we did appreciate what students were going through. That's why we opened up the wellness center, put cots in there, got collars. That won't take the place of air conditioning, but we tried to do as much as we could to make it as livable as possible during the hottest summer that's been on record. We couldn't have predicted the climate. It just happened to be even worse than usual. We tried to do what we could, open spaces, keep spaces open around the clock, et cetera. We will definitely take you up on your offer to come over in the hottest season. But again, that's why we're doing what we're doing. We appreciate that is a very, very difficult situation.
Okay.
So it's not out of lack of appreciation for it. It's out of the reality that those are the buildings that we have, and that's why we're making sure that we do the kinds of renovations that will mean that very soon that will not be the case.
Okay. And just to follow up with that, before I go on to my next question, I think the response was quite lackluster from administration when those things were going on. To offer cots in a wellness center while COVID is spiking and at an all-time high on campus was really a very bad answer to the situation that was going on. for next
First of all, just to be clear though, COVID wasn't spiking during that time. And at the end of the day, you know, we did what we could with what we had. So, you know, it was a place that people could sleep. People could sleep with masks if that was a concern. But at least there was a place that was air conditioned that people could go. And short of miraculously putting air conditioning in, you know, there weren't a lot of options to be able to try to give students some opportunity for some relief from what we all realized was a very, very difficult situation.
Okay. Spelman has girls paying $50K a year. I definitely believe that more could have been done if it had wanted to be done. But moving on to my next question, before coming into my first year, I was put on a wait list for housing. And so my question is, would you guys consider lowering the enrollment rate so that you can not only accommodate current students, but also accommodate students coming in, because you guys really couldn't even do that?
Yeah, we are decreasing enrollment for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you, President Gayle, for your immense patience, and I really enjoyed hearing your story today, especially about your college experience. My name is Jasmine Patrick. I'm an English major, sophomore student from Chicago, Illinois. And I suppose my question is mainly personal. When you compare your college experience with our college experiences, especially considering the housing crisis, how do you respond to students who don't necessarily have, I guess, I don't want to say privilege, but have the expenses to have a similar college experience as you did here at Spelman College?
My college experience, I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Okay, well, I will rephrase. Give me a moment. Okay, so this is the #1 HBCU, right?
Right.
So how are students expected to perform with similar excellence as you have in your college experience here under such a crisis?
Yeah, so, you know, first of all, the #1 HBCU is because of our academic, you know, excellence and what we do. It isn't for our facilities. You know, HBCUs are underfunded. And if you compare any HBCU, and we have one of the larger endowments, we are still way, way below wealthy, predominantly white institutions, and even not wealthy, predominantly white institutions. HBCUs are just much less financially wealthy compared to predominantly white institutions. We're doing all that we can to change that, and we stretch our dollars to the extent that we can. But at the end of the day, all we can do is to utilize the resources that we have and make them go as far as they go.
So considering the $100 million endowment that was presented to Spelman, will students who weren't guaranteed housing or weren't afforded housing be affected by that $100 million?
You know, as we talked about earlier, the $100 million, most of it is to go into the endowment, and after a year of investing those dollars, there will be some resources that will be available for scholarships, and as the years go by and those investments continue to multiply, there will be more resources for scholarship. There wasn't money in there for housing. So we will continue to focus, other than the renovations that we talked about, but those dollars were primarily for scholarships that will continue as the investments grow to be able to provide more scholarships to students in the future. We will also continue to do our fundraising so that we will have more resources for things like housing. But, you know, again, it takes resources, and we really can only do what we have resources available, you know, to support.
Do you believe?
Thank you so much, Dr. Gayle, for your response.
Do you believe that academic success is going to be impacted by houselessness. Because as somebody who did experience houselessness in the past, I know that there are mental implications that come with that. So are you predicting that academic success is going to be impacted by that?
Yeah, we, definitely feel strongly that college experience is not just what happens in the classroom. It's the community, it's the housing, it's the extracurricular activities, all of those things. And so, what we strive to do, and I think it was one of the last questions you asked me, is to make sure that for the academic excellence that we have, that we continue to keep that strong, but that we also build the other things that are important for the college experience. That's what we're committed to do, but it won't happen overnight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gayle, and thank you so much, Bria, for your diligence. We want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and a special kudos to Dr. Gayle for staying to voice and to respond to some of the concerns that we have from the students. So thank you so much, and we hope you all have as good as a night as you can have after this. So thank you, thank you, thank you.